positive thinking. I try to use it as a cover for what I'm really feeling and actually suppressing and not acknowledging what I'm really feeling within. So now I'm coming from a place of accepting what is coming up and allowing whatever emotions, whatever anger, whatever shame that I've been suppressing, allowing myself to feel it and then kind of work through it and kind of like transform this so I can reframe this to a slightly more positive way of thinking.
Welcome to the Mindform podcast, where we delve into the minds of some of the most interesting people on the planet, discuss psychology, philosophy, and personal growth, and share the wisdom we uncover with you. Join us as we explore the art of forming our minds. Here's your host, Frank Lawton.
I praise that, and especially when you're talking about using metaphor or maybe even story, I don't know, to relay these ideas, because I'm personally very, very interested in what makes communication impactful. There's sort of these three. You should subscribe to my Substack, by the way, because I write articles about this. But there's sort of these yeah, cool. I'll post it on Mindform at some point. But there's these three words to describe what I'm looking for, what I seek in communication, and that is connection, understanding, and transformation, right? So like good communication does that. Of course, people can talk about communicating well for your reputation, for success. People can talk about communicating well for to convince people of things, to whatever, and that's all. I mean, there's total validity to that, and you can learn a lot of. But that's what I'm looking for. That's what when I think of powerful communication, connection, right? A sense that we're in the same moment, we're sensing the same world, understanding. We're actually able to relay what's going on in here to the other person effectively. In transformation, people have a shift in perspective. People see things differently. So, and anyway, story. I'm like, it's super not natural to me. I don't think I ever communicate in stories. I feel very comfortable in the language of ideas, but I really want to lean into using story, using metaphor to relay ideas, because it's super powerful for all three of those. I mean, connection, you in this moment you're telling a story, you're both in this shared experience. Understanding, it's a really, really great way to contain and represent and capture ideas in context as well, right? In the context of a human life rather than sort of detached. And by playing out a story in your mind, you fill in the gaps. And then transformation, experiences are what transform people. So when you bring a new experience to someone by sharing a story with them, there's the power for transformation. So I'm very, very interested in, how do you take sort of abstract ideas? How do you take detached ideas and bring them to people, capture them in a way that leads to genuine understanding and transformation towards an internalized appreciation of those ideas, and that's hard to do. But I mean that's quite an interest of yours, right? I mean, you want to capture and convey these mighty ideas. That could be one way to describe your personal ambitions.
Yeah, no, that what I've struggled with so much in my life is like I'll talk about something and it'll be heavily influenced by something I've taken in recently. And I'll start talking from my mind and I'll be aware of it, but it's just like where I feel like I can't talk from in that period of time. But what's new is actually slowing down and just like trying to transform. That's like try to transform what I'm feeling within into the words, and you can feel it energetically when you actually are like you're expressing the words that are actually true to what you're feeling, and it's kind of like flowing out of you.
It brings a different weight as well, doesn't it?
So different, and you can feel it. Who you're communicating with, they feel it, you feel it. You get the head nods and the nonverbal gestures, like, oh, they understand what I'm saying. And yeah, it's funny, like I have always expressed myself like on resumes, like I'll say I'm a really good communicator, but I feel like there's so much more growth in that area.
Communication is Yeah, it's one of those things, like many skills, especially soft skills, where it's a really, really long spectrum, is the way I like to phrase it. Of like, you can be so much more skilled than someone over here, and yet there's someone, another kilometer that way who's that much more skilled than you. Like it's just, it just goes on and on. There's no cap, I think, to something as complex and multifaceted and subtle as communication in terms of room for improvement. And I find the idea, I mean, who knows how this journey will go, but I find the idea of improving in that skill continuously over the course of my life very exciting. What are the later stages of that look like, But yeah, I really like what you say about holding the feeling. And I mean, I'll never stop bringing up nonviolent communication, but that's one thing that does for me, is when when you're communicating in the language of what is alive in you, what's going on inside me right now. Or like sometimes when maybe it's to do with the feeling of safety with other people, or just, but for whatever reason, sometimes when I try to communicate in the way that you're describing, I really basically just try to describe my internal experience in that moment to the other person. Oh, it's kind of like, and then I'll like talk about shapes to that are representing the idea in my mind, and I'll talk about the feelings that are coming up in me, maybe even a physiological sense. And it's such a powerful and different way to relay ideas to people, because then they start working at that level, and you end up getting to this place where um, you're not playing with concepts. You're trying to build a harmony between these two inner experiences. You're trying to align what's going on inside, and that's a special feeling when you can do that as well. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's cool.
There's
Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while, but I like how you articulated it. Sorry, what were you
yeah,
just going to
there's
say?
so much I can express from that. Like just I mean, that book changed everything for me. So like and you gave me that push to go and read it. So
Most
like
welcome.
thank you. Um
Yeah, I'll keep. Yeah.
but if you want to save that for
No, no, no.
the
I mean,
show.
I think how we're talking right now will be kept in. And
Yeah,
on that note,
beautiful.
maybe I'll do the intro real quick. Hey,
Yeah, go for it.
awesome. Okay, well, three. Oh, do we have a message in the chat? Let's go, Jimmy. Hey, Ryan. Good to see you on the chat. You're always reliably on here. Good man. Sweet. I will start the intro. Kia ora from New Zealand. Welcome to the Mindform podcast. My name is Frank Lawton. I'm a father, husband, and contemplator with a passion for ways of operating which better empower us to live wholeheartedly. The Mindform podcast is an extension of the Mindform platform and is similarly a space dedicated to exploring and altering psychological landscapes together. So, in each of these weekly episodes, I will spark a conversation to mine for gems of wisdom and collaborate on the game of architecting our minds. Most of our guests are members of the Mindful platform. We're all just big nerds for psychology, philosophy, and self improvement. This week's guest is Jimmy Norris. Jimmy joined Mindform about a year ago and has in that time demonstrated an uncommon passion for personal growth. He's a personal trainer who hopes to similarly train people in their psychological wellness and growth later in his career. He's passionate about spiritual awakening, and he senses a global movement toward higher consciousness, which he wants to play a role in. Like me, Jimmy is equally and hugely interested in the apparently contradictory aspirations of endless growth and total self acceptance. So I'm really keen to dive into topics like this today and see what new perspectives we can glean from Jimmy. So yeah, welcome to the podcast, mate. Yeah, what have been this is my go-to question now. What have been your top feelings this week, Jimmy?
A tough feeling. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Super
all good, mate.
excited to be here. Top feelings this week or in this moment because I'll get a little anxious when I'm just talking in front of people or people that have the potential to hear my voice, I guess, in any crowd capacity. Um, but what's been, I guess, alive in me, if you will, a lot of optimism.
Oh, cool.
A lot of optimism, rooted in from life experience
Cool. Just optimism.
for like
Could you,
the future.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it. I have really been in this rabbit hole of positive thinking where I became aware of it. I mean, we know positive thinking, but it's always felt like I try to use it as a cover for what I'm really feeling, and actually suppressing and not acknowledging what I'm really feeling within.
Yeah,
So
not
now it's
uncommon.
say that again.
Not uncommon that people interpret it that way initially. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm coming from a place of accepting what is coming up and allowing whatever emotions, whatever anger, whatever shame that I've been suppressing, whatever guilt, just, depending on just where I'm at, and just allowing myself to feel it, and then kind of work through it. And then to be like, oh, but I can, and kind of like transform this, or I can reframe this to a slightly more positive way of thinking. And it's really been the past like 3 months that I've been kind of building that skill and kind of training that muscle, because it's taken a lot of practice. And now it feels like yeah, it's coming from a more authentic place within me. It feels
Mm.
great. It's yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really hard skill, but it's one of the like top tier sort of meta skills. Is That's the conclusion I'm sort of coming to. Like, yeah, we're in a very, I think we're in very similar places, or we have a very different starting point or something in our personal development journeys, Jimmy. But that speaks to me as well, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot too. Like, yeah, shifting to really just facing and sitting with the feeling. And it's such an simple thing to do, but it's a very difficult or unintuitive, or yeah, it's just not what you automatically do, and to reprogram that, I think is deeply powerful. Like, I find, regardless of what I'm trying to achieve, what shift in my self I'm trying to make, the capacity to pay attention to and just openly accept, without running from it, whatever feeling is going on in me that's a barrier to where I'm trying to be. Just sitting with that is always, if I can do it, is always the most powerful way to get on the other side of that barrier. Is always the most powerful way to, whether it's like doing things that I find boring and uncomfortable, I'm trying to motivate myself or discipline myself a little bit more, whether it's that, or whether it's overcoming anxiety, whether it's working through some kind of um, yeah existential dread, or some kind of depression, or these feelings that are coming up, whatever it is that I want to get on the other side of that. Being able to sit with the feeling is it. But it's a very difficult skill. What is that involved for you? Like, what tools have you utilized to increase your use of that approach over the last few months?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will dive into this. Like, it became so obvious to me that why I started abusing drinking, and I've been on this sobriety journey, and I actually hired a coach, which really provided a framework of tools that I've been well aware of, but just doing it and consistently doing it, having the backing of a community, and that the main ones are breath work, meditation every single day, particularly useful at that period of my life. Cold showers to like do something that's just really hard, and you just wake up and that's the first thing he wants us to do, and you just hear like a lot of negativity, or you just hear like, oh, just stay in bed, just like don't, just a lot of resistance to that. um but a lot of like in the moment reframing, like I already kind of touched on, like when you are feeling and that urge or that impulse to do the thing that is not good for you. In my in the form it's taken for me recently is alcohol, but it can be really anything, any impulse that's driving you to an action that's not aligned with who you really are. And just listening to it, but not giving into it either, like letting
Mm.
it run its course, Um, but yeah, it's not coming to me exactly like how I utilize that, but that feels like a skill that's probably the most important out of anything that I've been utilizing recently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, perhaps there's nothing more to say. It really is just listening, but not obliging, right? It's paying attention, but not succumbing, or however you want to, like. That's basically what you said, and perhaps, that's the skill. That's it, fully articulated, and it's really really simple, like I said, but it's very difficult to do. It kind of makes me think of so I have a 2-year-old, and we go to a play center, which is like a sort of parent co-run kindergarten playgroup sort of thing. It's really cool, but so I deal with a lot of like child behavior, and what you were saying sounded really, really similar to how you deal with a kid who's got really, really big feelings, especially unjustified, really big feelings, but justified within their worldview, but not like objectively reasonable. And it's that there's no way that something that you can constructively process or heal or move on from those feelings if you don't pay attention to them, and if the kid doesn't feel seen and heard. Like, that's really really important, but you need to do that at the same time as not giving them what they want, right? Like, that's that sort of balance. And uh, and it kind of makes me think of a bit of what we used to talk about a bit more in Mindform. I know Julian has talked about it a bit, but this idea of internal family systems, where the different voices, the different drives, the different personalities inside you can almost be treated like individuals. And so that compassionate response of listening to this childlike voice inside you that really, really just wants to put those bad feelings away and just wants to get what they want now. Listening to them, yeah, I hear you, but we're just not going to do that. Very exciting. Apparently, January's theme. Can you see the chat, by the way, Jimmy? See if you can find it, because I know a previous guest, if you go chat on the side and then live stream
Got it.
chat, great. Good. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's nice when we can both see that.
Yeah,
But anyway,
absolutely.
that's very exciting. Is that Julian who's going to be running that, Ryan? I'll answer us in a second. But anyway, that's awesome. But yeah, I hear you, person inside me who's really upset, but we're just not going to do that. But let's sit with those feelings. Like, that works for yourself personally in the same way it works interpersonally, which I guess just speaks to the truth of what's going on there.
Yeah. And just like another component to that has been really very noticeable in my world is my ability to regulate emotions,
Mhm.
um, which has been a really poor skill of mine. Like, been absolutely atrocious at my ability to do that
Yeah.
throughout my life. Um, and to be honest, like this sobriety journey, after 90 days of like the set program, I ended up breaking it. Um, a lot of interesting things were going on internally. What led to it, but a light bulb went off because that next day, that was the thing that just bothered me the most. Like, I was hungover, I felt like crap, but the thing that really bothered me is that like I walked by someone who I just like, I don't know, they're intimidating presence, and I just like felt like I got like red, and I just like, I don't know, I just couldn't handle what I was feeling, and it was just so like, it felt like I went back so far in that moment. I was like, I
Mm.
just don't want this in my life experience. I like to be in control of my internal state. Like, and it made me appreciate how much not drinking was doing that for me.
Right.
Um, and it's been 3 weeks since then, and I feel like I'm back to where I was and way farther, and I'm just like, there's no turning back now. Like, just so happy with, and just also realizing there's so much more room for growth in this area of my life. And it's like, I don't know, it makes life like fun, to be able to be in control of your internal state. Like, that's
Absolutely.
it.
It is, yeah, and I've had a very tumultuous, tumultuous is not the right word, ebbing and flowing relationship with uh, drugs in general, mainly just alcohol, in fact, only alcohol and weed, over the course of my life, and it's been very similar to that. it could be fun. It could be not like as a social thing, but I really just hate that. I just really, really, really hate how it feels to not be in control of my own internal state, to not be able to regulate my own emotions. It's like, yeah, you want to be in charge. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can completely relate. And props to you for doing something that's so hard that you were bound to fail at least once. That's how you know it's a challenge. That failure is part of the learning process. So awesome, dude. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump into one of these questions I sent you before the call because I really want to get into this topic that I mentioned in the intro as well. So yeah, so there's this dynamic uh, where you're trying to grow as a person, you're trying to develop new skills, you're trying to regulate yourself, you're trying to not listen to just not just oblige whatever feelings come up. You're trying to become better and better and more. And then there's this other thing that you're also trying to do, which is to be yourself, accept yourself, just be. How do those things work together? They sound like opposites.
Yeah. It has felt like different worlds where um I really like noticed a divide in my and I said to you PT before. I'm actually a physical therapist, and PT, it's very like interesting, like fitness, physical therapist. It's very much blended. When you use that, it's the same abbreviation. But in physical therapy, I would almost like put on my professional hat, and I would kind of get away from just like being myself. I would just be this like professional version of me. Um, and even when I've just really dove deeper into the types of readings and material we talk about in Mindform, I think I've even done it in our calls where I'm kind of just like this like developmental version of myself, this um, kind of me becoming someone else, but it still didn't always feel like it was fully me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but what I'm finding is the more I can be kind of embody playfulness and um, feel more. I know from nonviolent communication, I love the idea of like what's alive in you, and just coming from that place of just being able to, yeah, like feel it energetically that you're being true to yourself, and it naturally and organically, for me at least, starts to kind of flow out of me, and like there is no divide like I was creating in my own world, that I can bring that energy to the things I'm passionate about. But yeah, I'll let you reflect there because I feel there's more to it I'm not express
No, that's right.
not
It's
able
hard
to
to
express.
articulate, and
Yeah.
a lot, but a lot has come up for me, so I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to take this. While you're talking there, I mean, this idea of play that that feels really true to me, and I read this really impactful actually book called the Scientific Art of Autosuggestion, which was like a 70s or 80s era self-help book, making its really, really audacious claims. Like, if you just say autosuggestion, if you just say this to yourself enough times and really, really believe it, and, your whole life will change and stuff. But it was a really impactful book on me, actually. And one of the distinctions that he draws for sort of effective autosuggestion, um, which just to elaborate, if anyone doesn't know what that term means, it means saying things to yourself to kind of convince yourself of them, basically. I'm really confident, I'm really confident, I'm really confident, I'm not scared, I'm not scared, that sort of thing. There's no weeds. But anyway, and you he draws this distinction between will and imagination. And he says that sort of trying to convince yourself of things or become things by will is not going to work. It doesn't work. But if you use imagination, and if you can imagine with detached from will, detached from the need to sort of check that you're doing well, the need to know that you're there, just imagining. Just imagine that you're really, really confident. Just imagine. And I have been able to at different times really create a profound shift in my moment to moment perception of my environment and myself through imagination detached as distinct from will. When putting on a mask, putting on a character, putting on a role, and the difference is imagination feels like play. And another cool thing about play is that it is and this is what I know from my play center, as I mentioned earlier in the call, where I take my son, is play is the best way to learn. Play is how kids learn, far beyond rote repetition, far beyond pressure and demand. Play is how children grow as people, how they learn how to navigate social situations, how they learn to push their limits. That sort of, and part of, I think, what makes imagination and play distinct from like will is sort of that Bhagavad Gita idea, that Hindu idea of work without attachment to the reward, right? Without attachment to the desired outcome. And that's where what you're talking about just being in the moment, and there's a natural outpouring, and that divide is gone because you're not checking in, you're not judging and measuring, you're just being, you're just unfolding. And so I feel like that idea of play for me really, I like that you bring that up. It really reconciles for me that the intersection between growth and authenticity, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's turned into my number one virtue is embodying playfulness because that was one of the
Cool.
light bulbs that went off. Like that's where I've kind of steered the wrong way. Like I'm doing so much good for myself by reading all these self-development books, but I've gotten away from what has been a part of all the great experience, the most joyful, the best experiences of my life have been by play in some form. And I've just
Totally.
gotten away from that. And now that it's like, it feels so much fun to bring that in to my world now, and even my future dreams of being a creator myself. It's like, oh, that's what you can bring play into life now, and it's just like so obvious from the perspective I have now, and it just wasn't before.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a complete shift in your experience of the world. And Ryan just said in the chat, it's hard to maintain that sense of play in the adult world, and I
Right.
completely agree. Even though I do find when I'm in play, I thrive in every sense. And I think you see, some of you see people who are thriving not just materially, although also, but they're living, they're enjoying their life, they're doing what they love, and they're doing well at it, and they're connected over it. That they seem to be in play. So it's not that it doesn't work in the adult world. Maybe it's just that there's a constant shared anxiety, or there's messaging or something. I've not thought about it, but there definitely is something that if you don't um, if I don't put the work in to preserve that sense of play, which I'm not always doing. I mean, I got other things my bandwidth is going to, then it does dissipate rapidly. Um, yeah, how's that dynamic play out for you? Like, what do you do to preserve that sense of being in play through your daily life?
Yeah, it brings me into the present moment, as you said there. Like that Power of Now book. Yeah, light bulbs went off when I read that, but it to actually embody that, play has been my channel to just making, like, how can I make life fun? Like I'll catch myself and I'm like just stressed out or just like not feeling great when I'm actually like not in that bad of a situation. So I'll think like, how can I make this fun right now? Like how can I enjoy the experience I'm currently in more?
Mm,
And yeah, it's funny. It's like it's such an internal dialogue that is going on within me until it's like I know that that playfulness is useful when it just brings me into the now, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Just a lot of it's like how I'm interacting with people where, and you see it reflected right back right away. Like I've walked by this guy at work so many times, and I just hey, what's going on? But I was like, I'm just gonna comment on like something, and I'm just gonna bring a different energy to my hello. And I said hello, and I noticed what he was wearing. I was like, oh, I like that ugly sweater, and just I don't know, I just made it a fun interaction. And now every time I walk by him, it's just there's a totally different energy that's reciprocated. So you can use it in so many ways, which I just love about embodying that.
Mm. Yeah, I find it's just I'm really trying to capture how do you flick that switch, right? Because or how can anyone, how can I? Because I feel I have the same experience where I have a lot of knowledge about, yeah, I have a lot of ideas in my head about both the way I would like to operate, on a day to day basis, kind of how my my virtues of the character I would like to have, and I have a lot of ideas about tools and strategies and whatnot that might help me to pull that off. But I do find that until I step out of that anxious battle within myself to regulate myself, and that sense that there's something that needs to be done and something I need to be, until I step out of that, um, that very pattern that I'm describing of needing to be something, whatever, like that, that really puts a cap on my quality of experience moment to moment, and also creates a distance between me and my ideal self. Like that pattern itself um, perpetuates, I guess, sort of a lower degree of virtue for myself according to my own values. And so what does always make so much more of a difference is just a dropping of that, and oh, I'm in play, and let's just go. Life is fun. I'm gonna muck around. I'm gonna do what speaks to me. I'm gonna do what I enjoy. Um, yeah, I'm gonna just see what's fun and have fun with it. But how do I make that shift? I don't know. So I guess one tool that I use is like a worldview shift, like something that I'm convinced of, uh, if ever I think of it, is that the world really is like a game. It's like the most realistic, detailed, boundaryless game out there. It's like a video game, but like better and more meaningful, and there's more genuine connection to other people, and it's more detailed, and it's and there's every kind of players available to you. I mean, there's no rules, right? It's this idea that there's no, you're doing it because it's fun, and there's no you just play how you want to play. And when I lean into that perspective, when I remind myself of that perspective, that makes that switch for me. I think mindfulness, when I have a particularly successful quote unquote meditation or mindfulness practice, that can really help me to enter that state. And a really major thing for me is just connecting with people who are actually similar to me and seem to not bring any demands on me. They seem to just totally love who I am as I am. Like that's a major thing for me that enables playfulness. What enables
Yeah.
playfulness for you, Jimmy?
Yeah. I love yeah, just being around someone that's non-judgmental is it's such a gift, and it's something that I'm working to embody myself, because when I see it in someone else, it's really nice.
Yeah,
And
feels nice.
yeah, I love having kind of the framework of like curious experimentation, and that makes it
Mm,
very game-like to go
yeah.
through life when even when it could be a negative experience. Like it can be, and this happened to me very recently. I'm just feeling super stressed, and I'm just feeling awful, and just I'm feeling so many negative emotions. And I just like, how did I end up feeling what I'm feeling right now? Like I just like reflected for a bit, and just like, oh, so like I did this, I ate this at this time. I'm like, well, tomorrow, like, why don't I try eating at this time and eat something that's actually a little bit healthier for me, and then see how you feel. And then the next day I did that, and like I felt better. Like, okay, so that lines up. Like I should probably do more of that. And there's a lot of things you can do that with. but seeing life as an experiment makes it feel like a game, even when it doesn't feel good. You can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the feelings, I mean, feelings are just feelings. I mean, we were talking about this, just for the audience's info, Jimmy and I did a little sort of meditation together before we went live, and we we were talking about how feelings are just like when you enter the present moment, when you pay genuine attention to your feelings, they're just one small segment of this full, rich, complex landscape of experience, right? And if you think of the playfulness of a video game, your stats, right, that your player is unhealthy or your avatar or whatever, is unhealthy or is injured or is low on energy or whatever it is, they're just images on a screen. It's just information, and it's one piece of information among others, and it's not absorbing you, it's not overwhelming you, you're not so upset about it, it's just useful information that you can play with. And I feel like that skill, which we've talked about, that ability to feel the feeling, give attention to the feeling, but not react to it, really does empower that sense of play, because then it's just information, and you can all. There's this one of those fun YouTube sort of science chaps who does all these crazy experiments and makes fun videos about science and stuff. Talked about this idea called the Mario effect. Where you treat life like Mario. I mean, you don't get upset when Mario falls into the void or gets eaten by the carnivorous plant or whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, Pac-Man principle, same thing, exactly. It's just like, oh cool, okay, I won't go there next time. Good to know. Let's keep
Yeah.
playing. It's like, and yeah, I think
Quick.
that. Hey.
Or it's like quick. You're like, damn, and then you're like, all right, back
Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not that you don't. Yeah. It's not that you don't have the negative feelings. I mean, you go, yeah, damn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's within a larger feeling, right, of playfulness, and
Yeah.
it's a piece of a larger landscape, and maybe that's the thing about playfulness, is it's kind of like how I've understood the feeling of love, or the state of love, is that it's one that can contain any other state, and so you can feel depression, you can feel rage, you can feel disappointment within a larger, that's a ripple on a sea of play. And yeah, so that's a really I don't know, it's cool to tie those things. It's cool to tie those things together. If I can, maybe that's one tool, that's one skill to train yourself in the capacity to observe but not be absorbed into feelings, if you want to live and play.
Yeah. And what I love about it is it's taking me from I'll like, let me feel everything. Let me like kind of figure out what's going on inside me and try to work through it. It's taken me from that state where I'm just not interacting with the world to an action state where I actually want to experience, like get out into the world and treat it as my playground and just see that interaction back and forth to see like, oh, I do this is how it makes me feel. And yeah, so and this is very recent in my world. Like this is really the past, like since breaking my sobriety and the light bulbs that went off to like, oh, this is the way, and this is what makes life fun, and this is what I want. So yeah, I just
Perfect
love how
example, right, of how that failure is like actually just a piece of the larger game of experimentation. Oh, that's given me new information. Let's play forward in that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it's like that lesson ultimately was that I'm relying on something external, to something outside of myself, to get me what I ultimately want, which I can really only find within. Um, and through those like alive feelings that you get when you're playing. Like I have a almost 2-year-old nephew, and when I play with him, like the feelings that come up when you're in that kind of setting, when you're playing with a kid, like just channeling into that, but integrating into adulthood, it's a skill for sure. And I feel it really does take a lot of practice to actually embody it, and not just be like, all right, let's a game, and then you just get like, metaphorically like whacked in the head, and then you're back in that state. Like it takes reps for sure.
Yeah, that's a challenge, eh? How do you as an individual preserve playfulness into a time where people depend on you, when if you'll go hungry, you'll go whatever homeless or whatever if you don't complete certain
Yeah.
actions. Maybe it's just a matter of being okay with being homeless and hungry. I don't know. But how do you preserve that sense of playfulness? And another question is, how do I, as a dad, set up my son to preserve a sense of playfulness? I think a major thing, again, it's that same skill. It's being okay with not being okay. It's being able to, oh, I'm feeling this bad negative feeling, but I don't need to run away from it. It doesn't mean everything is wrong. It doesn't mean I am wrong that I'm feeling this bad feeling. It's just a feeling, and it's interesting, and what are we going to do about it? So that's something that I try to do with my son, and hopefully that helps, because that's what I want for him. I want him to just love life. I just want him to enjoy life. I believe it's a game. I know it's fun. I know. I mean, I'm sort of coming to this place of my sentiment about the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And of course that's a choice to decide what you want the answer to that question to be. But mine is to be enjoyed, and yeah. So that's what I want for my son. I just want him to enjoy life, and it's mad when we don't.
Yeah, coming
I'm
from someone that's not a father, I feel like it holds true of like just giving your kid love and just loving your kid, because that's like how we communicate like those enjoyment feelings. So it feels like that's a big part of it, but I can't speak much more from there because I'm not currently experiencing it. Uh,
Well,
the
I do
challenge in
agree that
today's world.
loving your kid matters. Certainly, I agree with that sentiment. I'm gonna jump into another question. This has been
Yeah,
it's
for
so
sure.
cool that we've been able to kind of wrap that up a bit. Play, feeling the hard feelings, being yourself, growing, like all of that can all be brought in together. In fact, one thing actually I did want to say before I'm interested in your thoughts on this about that is like I feel like people go either extreme with this. It's either if it's changing your feelings, if it's these feelings are bad and I need to become something, I need to keep myself in check. Then there's feeling suppression, feeling denial, a lot of grit, a lot of self-effacing kind of attitudes, and all of that. And then if people don't like that approach, because fair enough, it's quite painful and boring, then it's all of my feelings are good, and I'm going to listen to my feelings, and I'm going to follow my heart, and I'm going to do whatever. Um, you know, it has to feel like play. In fact, I saw this interesting, uh, picture, this like memeified sort of image on Substack of a bell curve, right? And they were saying that the bell curve was sort of like intelligence or wisdom or maturity or something, and the lowest end of that bell curve was a chap, with some like memeified doofus face, where there's a big dip in his skull to represent that there's no brain there or whatever. And he's saying like, no pain, no gain, and that's like, and then at the center of the bell curve is someone who says, it's the meme face of like, no, and he's saying, no,
Yeah,
icky
yeah,
guy, it has to feel like play, it has to be like upbeat. And then at the top end of the spectrum, it was some Chad or whatever saying, no pain, no gain, right? And so there's, I guess the idea there is that there's this apparent contradiction between just gritting your way through life and denying your feelings versus play, doing what feels good, just following your heart. But in reality, um, you can't listen to all your feelings. You do need to do things that are uncomfortable, but perhaps you can do that in a way that is conscious, or a way that is play, or a way that isn't self-effacing. But yeah, I've
yeah,
personally swung on to both of those extremes over and over, and it's unintuitive, or it's not automatic to be in that place of reconciling those contradictions. But what's that been like for you?
yeah. Well, I'll add like for me, like as much I'm talking about like playfulness has been so important for me. There's an undertone backing of seriousness, of kind of like a kind of like a masculine energy. If I'm kind of speaking from like what I'm experiencing, of I kind of think of I was watching. I'm a big UConn basketball fan, and just a college basketball team in Connecticut, and they're very good. They're like they've won 2 national championships in a row, and it's like they have such a chemistry. I'm trying not to be biased. We have such a chemistry where like when they do well, like it is so much fun, but like it's so serious too. Like they are going after it, and they have like that championship DNA, as the coach will say. But it's like it's really it's like it's so fun to watch because it's like going for it, and they put the putting the hard work in, but then it's like but it's play as well because like they're doing the thing, and there's the ups and downs and emotions you witness all in this like 2 hour stretch of watching TV, and I really enjoy watching it. But it's that undertone of seriousness and play, and it's it's a balance of those worlds that you kind of have to play with to really get down.
I'm certainly of the opinion that that's what men really love about sport. It's it's totally uninhibited, full commit play, and we want
Yeah,
that, and we want to be able to play with each other like that. You know what I mean? Because you get socialized as a young guy, and you like have to do this weird combination of taking yourself really seriously, but not taking yourself too seriously. You kind of have to keep yourself a bit detached from your need for connection and stuff, and you have to be really cool, but you also have to not try too hard and all of this crap, that's like
yeah,
teenage
yeah,
socialization and stuff. But in sport, it's full commit, it's full energy. You can't do well in sport if you're not willing to put aside all of your self-consciousness and just go ham. It's play, and it's that genuine connection kind of play as well. I mean, you don't, and I don't mean this in a way to make fun or anything. It's just perhaps the appropriate word, but you don't see uh, anywhere else do you see such socially accepted sort of homoerotic quote unquote behavior between men. But on the sports field, or if after a team wins the game, it's unfiltered, unchecking how it appears, just genuine playful connection where the men are kissing each other on the head, and
yeah,
throwing each other up
yeah.
in the air and all of this stuff. And that's how we play as little kids. And so I think what we love about sports is that we get to enjoy, whether we're watching it or in it, we get to enjoy that state of being.
Yeah, the game is just learning to bring that kind of energy into day-to-day life. I guess like submit a document, you're just like yes, and like I don't know,
Yeah,
just get super
yeah.
pumped and go and like celebrate. But like, why not
That
try it
dish
out
is
and
clean
see?
as fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But why not?
Yeah,
Have
well,
fun with
exactly.
it.
Why not? Yeah, life's meant to be enjoyed. And yeah, that's another thing. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm so aware of it. I'm so aware of it with myself as a dad, trying to bring play, and an attitude of play and encouraging play for my son. That so often just that tiredness of life just comes in, and oh no, I don't. I just need to get this done, and it's not fun, and just that kind of grumpy adult state that we
yeah,
all remember watching adults have, as we were children, and that's very easy for me to slip into that. And but I'm so, yeah, I guess I'm just so aware of that, because I know that that's not what I want to be modeling to my son, and our best moments, and the moments where I have the best the highest eudaimonia in the form of virtue self-signaling, to refer to Ryan's big theory, is when I am, everything's play, the dishes are play, cleaning up is play, we can make a game out of everything. But again, yeah, it takes something to make that shift. um,
absolutely.
yeah, so you've been talking a bit about this shift, like for you, just recently, sort of at this point in your sobriety journey, where you've been leaning a lot more into play. And by the way, yeah, definitely perfect timing to be reading, or to have read nonviolent communication, because it's those ideas are really cool. It's what's alive in you. He says, we should never not be feeling any way that isn't play. And I mean, he all of this. He talks about taking, responsibility for your own feelings. All the stuff we've been talking about. But I'm just curious in general, because, well, how old are you actually, Jimmy?
32.
32. Oh yeah, yeah. So we're still, both of us are still, yeah, in this
How about you?
settling into adult. 26.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we can still remember what it feels like to be college kids and stuff, but we're building our adult lives. We're not in middle age yet, and there's the whole, this is the growth stage of life for a lot of people, right? And so, just a general question to you, just I guess trying to get a read on where you're at in your journey is what's been like a big perspective, just a huge perspective shift for you in the last like 3 to 5 years, a shift in the way you view personal development or yourself or what life's about or whatever.
Yeah. I'd say the most powerful one, and I'm gonna like be careful with how I phrase it, but that there's a higher intelligence at play here. Um, I grew up going to I didn't really grow up I grew up going to church and going to religious school, but I never really embodied it. I mean, I can kind of go down a rabbit hole of talking about that experience, but and I wasn't like atheist. I just really wasn't like channeling something outside of myself, and I kind of want to get away from that way of seeing it, of just like more so what you're experiencing within. But a lot of like my journey is just a feeling of like feeling alone, even around like great friends and great people. Like I just felt like I was trying to figure things out by myself,
Right.
but to kind of just like reach out into like, I remember it was a Dale Carnegie book where I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was how to stop worrying and start living. And he said something along the lines of, listen, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be this, but tapping into this kind of power and this strength outside of yourself will change your life essentially. And that has held so true to me, where following my intuition and following kind of my life path and just seeing like there's and just seeing how connections have formed and people I've met, and I'm like looking back and like I from one perspective, if I wasn't connecting to this, I would have like, why did I have to struggle? Why did I have to do this? But now I see how everything's kind of happened for me, because
Mm.
kind of like I choose to see it that way. But it's changed my life in really powerful, meaningful ways. And part of it's kind of paired by some of my kind of psychedelic experiences. Just after reading some research of what it's done for people when it comes to mental health, and kind of exploring that a little bit, and just experiencing my body, just sensations and feelings of like love and kind of like the truest truth I've ever experienced. So yeah, it's changed my life, and it's something that powers me in the moments that I feel like I have nothing. It feels like there's a life force. I know it's like is where like Shakti or Chi, and that flowing energy that kind of powers the world, I feel like, in the universe. Like tapping into that is just, I don't know. You experience it, and I don't know which ways the words to explain it to someone that thinks it's bogus, but when you experience it or any form of it, you're like, this is
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. On the last episode, which was with Ryan Bush, got into the stuff just a little bit. And yeah, it's really hard to articulate, and it's really hard to make sense of intellectually. And I'm gonna try again, but it's gonna fall flat a little bit, I think, like it did last time. But to kind of model my understanding of what we're talking about here. Um, but I don't necessarily. I certainly don't confidently believe in this sort of collected, organized mind that has some kind of resemblance to a human mind that has planned all of reality and made the decision to create reality, and and then did a number of things as described in certain religious stories or anything like. That's I'm 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 pretty on the fence, leaning away from that, but I do. I take a genuine interest, a mystic's interest, a seeker's interest in God, or in being, or a being that is being outside of myself. And I sentiments that we've been talking about here, like play and love as a mode of operating, feel really characteristic of that being. I mean, it's a spirit. It's a spiritual thing. but yeah, it's like it's so hard to describe.
No, I get
It's
it.
like, what am I
I
saying?
hear you, and don't feel obligated to want to go into the weeds if you kind of did that with Ryan in the last episode.
Well, there's something I'm trying to say. Let me see. I'll give it a little bit more of a go, but I don't want to. I don't want to waste too much time.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but like, yeah, this. So I'll try to use story with this one. So I married someone whose parents are Christians, and they're very confidently Christians, and the the vast majority of the Christian claims, tenets, stories they believe, and it's a very big part of their life, and there's a lot of beauty in that for them, and they go to church, and in fact I go to church as well, but um, in a different way for a different reason, and we went to their church in Blenheim, which is in the South Island of New Zealand, when we were staying with them, and uh, Rob, my father-in-law, said, "Oh, there's this guy. You'd really like him. He's really, really cool. You guys should connect." And so I connected to this guy, and his story was that him and maybe his partner as well were Buddhist, right? So they did a lot of meditation. I see the poster on your wall. They were really into mindfulness and all of that. And I'm certainly very into meditation and mindfulness, and a lot of the tenets of Buddhism speak to me. And they were going through a really, really rough time with kids and trying to start a business and living out in the middle of nowhere and all this stuff. And they sort of both were like, came up to each other one day with the same reason that they wanted to speak to each other, which is, should we just try going to church? And so they do that. And and he said it was really transformational for them, and now it's a big part of their life. And the way he articulated the shift to me was that it went from all being on him to not all being on him. It went from like, I have to work and grind and think right and feel right and do all of the stuff right if I want to awaken, or if I want to feel peace, or whatever it is, if I want to connect to life. But that shifted the difference that faith in something beyond himself, something that had some kind of character, something like love, whatever outside of himself, was that he didn't need it wasn't all on him anymore, and it was just like this massive weight off his shoulders, like, oh, I actually don't need to be it, I can tap into it. Do you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
be love and peace and the source of all of this. I can tap into that, and that's I think that's how I want to articulate it. That's the shift. That's the importance of that for me, is that when I am weak, when I am hopeless, I actually don't, like, there's something just about reality. There's something about the landscape of experience, about the natural world around me, about all of the stuff, that if I just fall on that, like a crying child falls on to the leg of their mother or whatever, I'm able to receive all the, I'm able to harness or receive all of the love and peace that I need. I don't have to create it. I don't have to design it. I don't have to understand it. And so what's going on there? I'm not sure. Perhaps it's just that particular mode of perception is the best way for an individual to activate peace and thriving. But
yeah,
it's certainly buying into this idea that there's something to reality. There's something out there. There's something that's holding it all together that has what you're looking for. It really takes a weight off, to say the
yeah,
least.
yeah. And that's how I view it, because like you can go into that whole like the God conversation. It can go so many different directions. I view
Definitely.
it as like that higher intelligence that's kind of connects you to everything in the world, but it's within you, and it expands that. Yeah, that you're not. Yeah, for me it was like you're not alone, but energetically is kind of how I kind of use this wisdom, if you will, like that higher intelligence within me, or I guess that it's kind of like a form of energy. I kind of lost that train of thought, but like that
It's
energy
so hard.
transformation of like for example, if I get like really, I don't know how this is going to tie into what we're just saying, but like
That's fine.
it was a perspective shift for me though. It was when I'm feeling something like energetically, like I've always been very sensitive and always like struggled with just not freaking out or not being like having a panic attack. Like somehow that idea of like a higher intelligence and something like that connects me to everything, it's kind of expanded, like it's kind of let I don't know, how to like decrease some pressure within. I kind of let some of that out, and I like kind of let it out into the world, and I can just relax a little bit,
Mm.
and somehow it like flows back to me. I don't know if
I
that
mean,
made sense,
I know what
but
you mean
it
from an
makes
experiential
sense to
sense.
me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
good enough. No, but I understand. And it's I like just to, I guess, fill out that metaphor or paint that picture a little bit more. Another shift that you feel in there is the removal of a sense of isolation. Alan Watts talks about this idea as, when you awaken from this illusion and you understand that, or whatever he says, but you are not a stranger in this world. You do not arrive here by fluke. You are not here on probation. Whatever, and this idea that there's sort of the separateness that you plonked in this world, but actually, you're an outpouring of this reality. You're part of it. You're of it. Like that's a spiritual shift. That's a shift that's spoken of in most powerful religions and spiritual traditions. It's a removal of loneliness. It's a removal of a sense of separateness and non-belonging and isolation. And you talked about there being this pressure inside you, and I feel like the removal of that boundary between me and the world, that releases pressure, right? Just kind of paint out the image. It's like all the stuff that's going on in me in battle with the world, or to supplement the void, or that the lack of what's within you. When you
Yeah.
soften that boundary between you and the world by leaning into it, by falling into it, then there's a release of pressure, in the same way you take the lid off the pot, and because the air and the pot is connecting, there's the release of pressure. That was
Yeah,
fun.
for
That was
sure.
fun making that metaphor. Hey,
Yeah,
we're
that was
getting
great.
really close to the end, and I was just gonna see if there was. Oh yes, this is a question that I don't know if I've had a chance to ask any of our guests yet, but I've been wanting to. Is you clearly, it's something you think about. It's something you think explicitly about. This idea of like, uh, who do I want to be? What kind of attributes do I want to have? And how do I want to feel day to day? To help me get a sense for that, although this might have been better earlier in the conversation, I think it's just a fun question. What is like a character from film or TV? It can be a cartoon character, live action, whatever. It doesn't matter. That most resembles this ideal character of yours.
Yeah, I'm so happy you asked this, because when I saw that as a possible question, I was like, I have no idea. And as I was reflecting on just some of these things, it came to me. Have you seen the movie Wanted with I forget the main actor, Angelina Jolie's in it. You haven't seen it? He like curves bullets
Oh
with a gun.
yeah.
Yeah, where he experiences like really intense levels of anxiety, and it's like cripples him. Like he thinks it's like the worst. Like it's why do I?
James
Yeah,
McAvoy. Yeah.
yeah.
He's great.
Um, but yeah, it's like crippling for him, and it's like he's at work, and it's just terrible. And then he learns, oh, it's a gift, and it's something I can actually use to actually like it's a superpower. And I think we all have that where, and it really touches me because anxiety and being like socially anxious, and that has been a big part of my life experience, and to actually like transform it into something that like, oh, this is my gift, and I can use this, and I can use this energy and kind of transform it into a whole new form, which I can express into a world in an entirely different way, and actually give that energy to the world, instead of being like having that pressure gauge just to kind of like make you want to explode within. Um, but yeah, and I thought it was kind of like a badass way to kind of like channel that. So yeah, curving bullets. I'm not gonna go try that. I like that though, because it's kind of like showing what's possible. Like okay, there's probably a pretty strong rationale that that's not physically
Yes,
possible.
MythBusters busted that myth,
Yeah.
but aside from that,
Yeah, but like just as like a metaphor, just kind of like pushing into what's possible, and that's something that deeply drives me at this point. Is to see, I read about like you can create your own reality, you can do this. Like, let's see, like
give me both.
treat it as a game. Like, let's play. Like, let's go after what I truly want and see what freaking happens. So kind of like, yeah, just kind of prove to myself what's possible, but I hope in the future I can help people kind of find that gift within them and kind of show the world what's possible for themselves. But yeah, I guess that movie kind of channels a lot of that energy in me. Thank you
You
for
must
asking.
you must really, yeah, no problem. Good answer. You must really like that movie Limitless, right?
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
love that movie. I try to watch
Yeah.
that
Great
every year.
movie.
You know,
Yeah.
with the drug that just makes you your best self, I guess. I don't know. There's something about the way he does it. It's just lovely. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the best game. That's the best game to be playing, right? That's the best play to do is let's all of these different things I've experienced. Let's see how we can turn that into something powerful. Let's see how we can turn that into something fun. That's transformation. I think that's a good point to end the call, Jimmy. This has been really, honestly, great. This was cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've had a great time. I've got a lot of ideas buzzing around in my head, and yeah, it's been a transformational conversation. So thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, I just really appreciate. I feel like we managed to bring a lot of different things together, really around this core idea of playfulness, openness, excitedness, just going full throttle, going uninhibited, unregulated
Yeah. Yeah.
into what's going
Absolutely.
on, into what's around you, and that that's a nice feeling to think about, and it's a nice goal to have. So yeah, thanks for the reminder of that, and yeah, but otherwise, thank you so much for coming on. This recording will be posted, and we can talk more about these things. But yeah, it's been a real blessing, Jimmy, and I'm keen to catch up with you again.
Thank you so much. I mean, this conversation has felt like play, so I think that's a suiting way to close out here. Thank you so much. You're really great. I'm so happy that when I heard you were the podcast host for this community, that just made all the sense in the world for me, because I feel we all connect to you in different ways. You're so yeah, you're great at doing this. So keep it up. Keep up the great work, and yeah, thank you again.
Much appreciate that, Jimmy. You're an awesome guest. Great to have you on. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to the Mindform podcast. I'm Ryan A. Bush, founder and author of Designing the Mind and creator of Mindform. Mindform is an exclusive community and training platform for sculpting your psychological software. Members get access to a group of like-minded psychotechs, including all of our guests on this podcast, gamified growth tools, events and retreats, and a collection of transformative programs for mental health and self-mastery. You can learn more and apply to join at mindform.io/podcast. I hope to see you inside.